Hello, and welcome to the next episode of the Spirit and Soul podcast. Today, I am super pumped to bring someone to you that when I met her at Spinal Energetics, we just connected in this beautiful way. And honestly, her story is just so powerful and moving that I kind of couldn't get it out of my head. And immediately when I got home, I called Dr. Ren Navarez, who is with us today. And I said, please come on my podcast. So here she is. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, how's it going? I'm so super happy to be here with you.
So super excited to have you.
Same.
So Ren, please tell us all about you, how you got onto your spiritual journey, and kind of like what you're doing now.
Okay, well, it's kind of a lot, but I'm a chiropractor by trade since 2007. Reiki master, spinal energetics practitioner like yourself. Also the founder of the L3 Collective Wellness Center out here in Southern California. We're right on the border between LA and Orange County. I've been working in this wellness industry since 2007. My experience is a little bit all over the place. So like when I started as a chiropractor, I was like super pumped to get into holistic medicine and to do all these real natural things. But when I got out of school, I kind of got pushed in to this more allopathic kind of area. I started working in orthopedic surgery in a group of surgeons back in 2009. And I kind of just fell into that. Like I was at the right place at the right time, I guess. And I was so blessed to learn orthopedics, and I've been assisting in surgery. I do a lot of that real Western stuff too. But I started my spiritual journey, I would say probably in 2013. My father was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and it just rocked me to my core. We didn't have the greatest relationship, and I was faced with this like impending doom and grief. So I started to read everything metaphysical. Like I started to study the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. I started learning about crystals. I fell into Reiki just out of nowhere. I found someone who was talking about Reiki, and then I just like kind of just beelined towards Reiki. I learned Reiki. I became a Reiki master. It really helped me. I think that was all just preparing me for the pending grief that I know that was coming, right? And so I actually using that knowledge and skill set helped me mend my relationship with my father, and helped once he did transition, like it was a completely different thing that I had expected. It was more of a beautiful transition, and kind of helped me a lot. So but it was kind of like what I did in my own life. Like I hadn't brought it into my work life. You know, I was still deeply ingrained in the allopathic world, and spirituality was kind of my own thing. And I did share the journey I was on with a lot of my friends and some of my family, and helped them on their own spiritual awakening and help them go through their own journey. But it really wasn't part of my everyday work life. Like I was still very separate. It was like Western ortho surgery, and on the side Reiki and meditation. And I did things for myself and helped my friends. And then the pandemic happened. Like then the pandemic happened,
It
right?
sure did.
It sure did. And that was a blessing and a curse, I guess, because I never stopped working. You know, I work in a hospital. I never stopped working. I was in it. I was deeply in the pandemic. I mean, ortho, I didn't deal with a lot of folks who were getting treated for COVID, but I did have some patients, and it was just a lot of sadness and stress, and being in that energy was just wearing on me heavy. And, you know, hearing the codes of people dying every day, it was really hard, you know, and I tried to put on a strong face, and I tried to like pump up my friends who were nurses in the ICU, but it was really hard. And the stress was at its peak for me. And I just felt kind of trapped too. Like I felt this calling happening. Like I need to go into the holistic world. I know all this stuff. I know I have a lot of great things to offer, but I felt stuck in the ortho world because of finances and the
Mhm.
security. And who am I if I'm not working in this hospital? You know, so I was going through this struggle, but I really wanted to move away from the allopathic world, and I wanted to kind of embody the version of me that I knew that was like right under the surface. So I started looking for a different job, and I eventually found one working in a wellness center in LA. But I was scared to leave the comforts of surgery also. So I was doing both things, right? And,
So you were doing both jobs?
I was doing both jobs. So a
Oh
couple
my
days a
God.
week, I was in the wellness center and I developed my own chiropractic treatment modality called Reiki Practic, which is a combo between chiro and Reiki. And the
Oh, I
people
love
were,
that.
it was so fun and great. And I was loving it. So I was in the wellness center. I was like feeling myself, But when I was in the hospital, I was becoming resentful and angry about having to still be there. And it was that finance that kept me there, the security. Because like, can I really make a living doing what I love? Like it was this push and pull that was happening and it was wearing on me. I was working sometimes 60, 70 hours a week. I was also caring for my mother who's elderly and ill 3 days a week. I was trying to, you know, balance my relationship. Like I was being pulled in all the directions. And I would say I would about a month before my medical event happened, I was woken up in the middle of the night with this message. And I was like, my angels, my higher self. I heard something say very clearly, something's gonna give.
Oh, I just got chills
Something.
all over.
Yeah, friend. I was like, something's gonna give. Okay. It's probably gonna be my relationship because I barely had time for my partner. And when we did have time, I was always somewhere else. And it wasn't fair to her. And
Yeah.
it wasn't going so great. So I thought it was gonna be my relationship and or one of my jobs, right? Or a mom. Um, and then I kind of heard it, but like we do, what we do is we just put it up back. It's a message, but I'll think about it, or something, or maybe I just need to take a nap or something, whatever. But then a few weeks after that, I would say my birthday was February 1st, right? On February 2nd of 2022, I woke up with this weird headache, like I don't have headaches very often. So I was like, what is this headache? And it was right at the base of my skull on the right side. And it wasn't so bad to where I would be like, I can't function, but it was like nagging and I was nauseous. But again, I just took some Advil and I went to work, right? Like we do.
Like we would if
Like
you
we
just had a headache,
Yeah, exactly. Like we would. And for me, and I told some friends about it. I have a friend who has migraines and I asked her about it and she's like, no, that's not migraines. Maybe it's hormonal. And my partner was like, I think you should go in. And, doctors are the worst patients, to be honest. It's the truth. And I was like, I could still, but the Advil's working, but it would take it away and then it would come back and it would take it away and then come back. And then finally on Valentine's Day of 2022, I woke up and I didn't have a headache. And I was like, oh, okay, this will be a good day, right? So I was kind of excited because I was going to see my partner later. We were going to have dinner. It was one of the nights I was staying with my mom. So I headed to work just like any other day. I went to the wellness clinic. And it was about maybe 10 minutes into my third client where I it felt like the worst headache I've ever had in my entire life. It felt like I was in a tunnel and this pressure in my ears, like when I was moving, it was like, vroom, and I was so nauseous. And I had a client on the table, and her two little twin sons were sitting on the couch with their mom. And I thought for a second, okay, this will be okay. I'll be fine. And then it just got worse. And I said, no, this is not okay. So I excused myself. I stepped out. I spoke to my friend and receptionist at that time, Jamie, and I said, Jamie, something really seriously is wrong is happening. I need you to call 911 right now. And she was like, well, are you sure? Do you need to eat something? And I said, no, something really bad is happening. So take it back to my medical education. They taught us in school the worst headache of your life is a medical emergency, no matter what, right? So I made two very quick phone calls. I called my partner Mel and I said, hey, something's really bad. And I called 911. I need you to get down here. And I called my sister and I said, I think I'm having a stroke, you know, but I could still talk and I could still speak. So I was like, what is happening? Maybe this is a mini stroke, a TIA, or maybe I'm just having a really bad migraine. And I thought maybe I should just take an Advil and lie down. And thank God I didn't do that because I wouldn't be here today,
Oh
right?
my
So
God.
yeah, so it was scary. I finally the paramedics came and they were kind of not really taking me serious, and I was like, no, guys, I'm real. This is really bad. My blood pressure was 220 over 110. And they're like, so do you want to go to the hospital? I'm like, yes, I want to go to the
That's
hospital.
why I called you.
Hello, take me to the hospital. So they transported me to the hospital, and the ER doc wasn't really taking me serious. I had to pull my weight, and I said, listen, dude, like, this is not a migraine. I'm a provider. I know the standard of care, and I know I need a CT scan. And they didn't mess around. Like after that, I kind of had to, and it's unfortunate. That's a whole nother subject for a whole nother podcast, how we have to advocate for our own care. But um, I had to. By that time, Mel, my partner, and my sister Becky, they were already there in the parking lot, but it was during Omicron, so they didn't let them in. And LA was such a hot spot, they didn't let them in. So I was fending for myself with the most excruciating headache, violently vomiting, sensitive to light, just panicking, but trying to stay cool, right? It's trying to stay cool. So I finally get the CT scan, and I knew immediately it was bad because the tech looked at the scan and looked at me with these eyes, and I was like, oh no, this is really bad. And then he asked for the doc to come in, and they ordered an angio, and I was like, oh, I had a stroke. I had a stroke of some sort, you know. But I wasn't prepared for the words that were coming, right? I was not prepared. So they wheeled me back to the ER, and I'm vomiting everywhere at this point. And then the ER doc, who was reluctant to give me a CT scan, says, you're having a subarachnoid hemorrhage, or, and I was like, what the F? Really loud. And he said, you had an aneurysm. You have had a brain aneurysm rupture. And I was just like in shock. I was in shock.
Wow.
And I was like, I have two people in my life who've had aneurysm. My grandmother had an aneurysm in 1992 on her birthday in our house, and she died pretty much instantly. And then that was my mom's side. And then my dad's side, my Aunt Rose, who's like the strongest person I've ever known, one of the strongest people. She had an aneurysm in 2010 when she was, I think, 69. And she survived it. And I was actually with her and her daughters since I was in the medical field, and I have friends who are neurologists. I was helping them kind of figure out, you know, so I knew about the surgical options. So at that point, I was just like, I didn't think about my grandma too much because I didn't want to freak out. So I kind of focused on my Aunt Rose. And I'm like, if she could do it, I could do it, you know? And then I heard this voice in my head that was like, if you sleep, you will die. So don't fall asleep. Do not
Oh
surrender.
my God.
Do not go to sleep.
Oh my God.
And so I'm in the ER. I know it's heavy stuff, friend. It's really heavy emotional stuff.
No, I have chills, like, I mean, just up and down. I can
Yeah,
like visualize this right now.
yeah, it was heavy. And so I was at just a regular hospital, and I'm a Kaiser patient, so I had to wait for Kaiser to come and call for me to have this brain surgery. And the ironic thing in Hollywood is that the hospital I was in is like next door to Kaiser Hospital. And my sister and my partner were like, should we just go get her and move her? And, you know, because they knew it was going to take forever, right? And it did. It took like, I think 8 hours for them. And while
What?
I was laying in the ER, I could still kind of text a little bit, and I thought I could talk. People were like, you were a little, but I felt like I could still talk. And I was trying to really just keep myself alive. So I was like, no, I'm not surrendering to this. I'm not going to surrender to this. I'm going to be fine. My Aunt Rose did it. I'm going to be fine. I could do this. And I would not let the fear creep in. And I was just like beast mode, right?
Love
While
it.
my sister and Mel worked on getting me transferred. So I had to call my sister and tell her that I had an aneurysm, and that was really hard because my grandmother. And then I had to tell Mel. I had to tell her, and I was begging for them to let her in, and they wouldn't. And I told the ER guy, the guy that I didn't already like, I was like, "Would you like to tell your wife that your brain is bleeding over the phone?" You know. And he was like, "Let me see what I can do." And Mel tried and tried, and couldn't get in. So I had to tell my partner that my brain was bleeding over the phone, over the video chat, you know? And that was really one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, and tell my sister. And then at that point, this is an important part in my story because up until that point, I was like, don't tell anybody what's going on. I don't want to scare my mom. I don't want to scare my family. But I told Mel, tell everyone. and tell them to pray and send me energy and love. And I said, tell everyone, tell them all, right? So 8 long hours later, I get transferred to Kaiser, and it's like fast. They start cutting off my clothes. Mel had already talked to the surgeon. She's already consented for me. And he comes in and he tells me, we're going to do this procedure called endovascular coiling. And I knew this procedure because it's what my aunt had. And so they go into your groin, all the way up into your brain, and they make a little bird's nest of platinum in the ruptured vessel to stop the bleeding and for it to clot, right? So I said, cool, I'm down, let's go, And then I had 6 minutes to call my loved ones and tell them a potential goodbye. And that was rough, I'll tell you. But I felt like I had to do it because I was like, not only if I would to pass or transition, but what if I come back and I'm not me? You know, if I'm not me, I'm a different person. Like maybe I have deficits and I can't communicate. So I wanted to tell everybody that I love them and that they were amazing. So my brother, my sister, my partner, my two best friends, and my mom. Oh, that was a hard one. Because she lost her mom to an aneurysm, and I knew that word was very triggering to most of the people in my family.
Yeah.
But I did it. It was the hardest. Those are the hardest phone conversations I have ever had. And I did it though because I was like, I have to do it for them, like for me, but also for them. So I did that, and then they're wheeling me into the OR, and of course I'm looking around as being a surgeon. I'm like looking around at their OR, like, hey, what's going on in here? This is interesting. And then I realized at that moment, it's okay to surrender now. You can surrender now because you've held yourself all day. You've kept yourself alive. It's time to just surrender and let them do the work, right? And I said a quick prayer first. I said, like I have archangels that I speak to all the time. Our Archangel Raphael is the angel of healers, right? So I pray to him a lot when I'm in surgery. Gabriel, Michael, of course, just the big ones. And I could just feel their presence almost. Like I'm praying, and I said, hey guys, and I have a lot of work to still do on this planet, but if you guys think it's time, then I'm going to surrender to this, right? I'm going to let you guys decide. And I said this prayer, and that's when, like, the experience, like I call it the experience. So I felt this vibration of energy wrap itself around me and lift me off the table. And this was before I had any anesthesia or any hard drugs. Like I was just laying there while they were prepping the OR. And I felt this energy, this light, this vibration is the best way for me to describe it. And it wrapped itself around me. And I felt like I was coming off the table. My body weight was gone, and I was just like weightless. And with that, I was like, wow, this is amazing. And then the knowing, I call it the knowing. It was like this knowing, this is love. What am I experiencing at this very moment is the love of my people. So Mel got on the phone and she called my friends. And I have a vast network of friends all over the country that are Christians, Catholics, and Jewish folks, and Wiccans, and Reiki masters, and Mormons. I have every kind of friend in all different walks of life, and they were lighting candles and holding ritual for me and sending Reiki and prayer and chanting. And at that moment, I felt that love. I felt it lift me off the table. And then the knowing, this is love. This is your people. God is in this love. All of this is all the same. Like, it was this crazy download of like this knowing, like, oh, this is love. Oh, this is why we're here, right? We're here to love. We're here to make these types of connections with people. And then I also realized, wow, like this love could be utilized for the greater good of humanity. Like if we all just collectively focus on it, like what? I was in shock, but I was like, wow, oh wow, but it wasn't like a shock where like it was like, oh, I already know this. Like you and I have spoken about before, like
Mm-hmm.
it's a knowing that was
That
just
innate wisdom. Yeah.
wisdom awakened in me without doubt. And it was like, oh, this is love. This is my people praying and sending energy and lighting candles, holding space. And I felt God. And I realized this is why we're here. And also, it starts here. Like, wow, I've heard this people say this before. It starts with you. You know, you have to love yourself. And yeah. You know, but at that moment, I felt it is starts here. Conditional, unconditional self love, and this connection, this love, this energy. It's all the same, and we can use it to help heal ourselves and to share this knowledge with other people. And I was like, oh, okay, this is why I'm here. Okay, I'm going to be fine because this is the message that I am meant to preach and to share. You know, I have to share it with the world, right? And then I smelled my dad's cologne, which is not a really common cologne. It's like an old guy's cologne, English leather. Okay, taking it back to the
Okay.
70s. It's my dad's cologne. I smelled it in the room and I was like, there's no way any of these surgeons are wearing my dad's cologne, right? And then he died in 2015. And then I felt my dog Hero. He was a Weimaraner that I had who passed in 2021. And I felt him on my lap. He used to do this thing where he would lay on my lap and his very soft ears, I would play with them. And I felt I was playing with his ear. I could feel it in my hand. And I was like, okay, I'm going to be fine. And then they came, anesthesia, put me out. And then I woke up 4 hours later. And I remembered the whole experience. I
Oh my
can
God.
still sharing it with you. I can feel that energy. I can smell his cologne. Like I felt
Wow.
it. It was so real to me. And it was like this confirmation, like, I'm gonna be fine. So I wake up, it's 3 a.m. by this time. I'm like, someone give me my phone. And I call Mel, like nothing happened. And she's like, what? I'm like FaceTiming her at 3 a.m. And she's like, I didn't think I would talk to you. I just got off the phone with the surgeon and he said you did great. And I was like, I feel great. I felt like nothing happened. I mean, it was the first time in the whole, I don't even know how many hour experience that I had no pain and I felt clear. And I was like, hey, I'm good. They took my phone or else I probably would have called everybody, to be honest.
They're
So
like, give me this,
give me
lady.
that. It's 3 a.m. I was like, but okay, I'll call them tomorrow, you know? And she was shocked. She was shocked. She took a screenshot of it and her face is like this. And I'm like, super, super excited just to be alive. And I remembered what happened. I remembered what happened. And I was like, wow, wow. It was I was still kind of in shock over the whole thing. Like, did this really happen to me? And they were like, you did great, go to sleep. You did good. Take a nap. They woke me up every few hours and they kept putting, doing the tests and the lights in the eyes and everything. And then in the morning is when really just everything went crazy. I had all these doctors in my room and they all kept coming in and they were like all happy and excited about my outcome because it went just super perfect. Like, and then they took me down to get a scan and they brought me back up. And again, all these doctors keep coming in and out and they're like, we just did your scan and there's no sign of stroke in your brain. Like, there's no
What?
damage. There's no blood. Because what happens is it ruptures and the blood accumulates in the brain. And they said, we don't see any blood in your brain. We don't see any signs of stroke. We only just see the coil we put in to repair the artery. Like, I was like, okay, cool, awesome. And then I thought to myself, and they were so like excited that I was like, well, maybe this doesn't happen very often. And one of the nurses like, this doesn't happen very often. You were in
Wow.
the neuro ICU surrounded by people that are the sickest in the hospital, and this doesn't happen. And I said, okay, well, great. But then I remembered the love, and I was like, that love, that experience, like, did that have something to do with this recovery? Like, so all day testing, more testing, and no deficits. Like, they all to evaluate me for speech pathology and physical therapy and occupation, and they're like, you don't need any of this. Like, I was like, okay. all right. Like,
Yeah. So when do
cool.
I get to go home?
Yes. When can I go home? Exactly. And they said, nope, you got to stay for at least 21 days. And I was like,
What?
21 days. So I guess what happens is when they put a foreign body in your brain, they have to wait and see
Mm.
how are you going to respond to it. And there's this thing called vasospasm that happens when you put a foreign body. So they put me on these horse pills like every 4 hours or every 6 hours, and then they watched me. And I actually ended up getting out in 12 days because I did exceptionally well, right? And every day the doctors would come, like 8 doctors and their PAs, to sit on my bed and talk to me. And I got to share, some of the things I felt, and just gratitude and love. Like, I was like, listen, docs and nurses, like, you guys keep me here as long as you want, as long as when you leave me, you let me go home, that I'll be okay. I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to try to get out early. I'm going to do everything you said. I'm not going to, buck the system here. I'm going to stay put. And during that time, though, it was like a gamut of emotions. Like, I felt gratitude, I felt love, I felt guilt, I felt mad at myself for letting myself put off my own care, for not listening to the signals. And I'm going to bring this up because I think a lot of us do that. Like, universe was knocking, God was knocking, telling me, hey, something's going to give here, kiddo. you know. And I always say the knock gets louder and louder. So that first knock was that message, and the second knock was the headache, and the third knock knocked me over, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that knock gets louder and louder, and if we turn off the warning signs, like I say, it's like you ignore the check engine light, that knock's going to get louder. And
Mm.
I was blessed enough to survive that.
My
But
goodness.
not a lot of people do. Like, the new studies is it's 1 in 4 people survive the kind of stroke I had.
Oh my God.
27%, right? I had a 50-50 shot going into that surgery, right? And, like, I know that the reason that I'm here, has a lot to do with that message that I got that night. And so I haven't shut up about it. I told everybody, I tell people that I know that might think I'm crazy because I work in an allopathic setting. And when I tell this story, they're like, it's crazy. She's crazy. No, no. Because
No.
even if you don't understand it now and it doesn't resonate with you now, maybe I'm planting a seed for you that will eventually resonate and will help you on your journey in life, right? And I
Oh,
say, my catalyst almost killed me, but maybe if I can keep people from having this kind of catalyst, that's not life threatening, they can hear the knock before it knocks them over, knocks them out. That that just has become like my purpose, and sharing the love, sharing the experience, connecting with people. Like, my whole perception has changed on life. When I came out of the hospital, I was a different person, and I felt like that crazy workaholic, doubtful person. She died that day, and the
mm.
version of me that came out of the hospital was something completely different and beautiful, but also grief stricken. And I mourned, and I continue. It's only been over a year. I mourn that version of me sometimes.
Mm.
That girl
And that's
that,
okay.
yeah, I embraced it. At first, I was like, get over it, and then I'm like, what? No, I am gonna mourn her. I'm gonna love her because she got me through some really, crazy times. And the PTSD hit me. Every time I get a headache, every time I read an Instagram post about a young, I guess, Instagram, like, one of those girls, what are they called? The influencers. She had
Mm-hmm.
an aneurysm a week away from her pregnancy due date, and they had to do a brain surgery and a C-section at the same time, and she's in a coma. I read that story and it hit me like, man,
Mm.
So I'm an advocate for aneurysm, and I'm an advocate for unconditional self-love. I'm an advocate for connection. I'm an advocate for radical self-care and self-love, right? Um, and I like to use this story, and I know it's shocking and it can be jarring, but I like to use it to share with people that we're not just here to work ourselves to death. Like, we're here to connect with people, to share our love, to share energy, to share space. And this is this is like, it's like the joy that came from this incredibly scary wound for me, you know?
Mm. Oh my
So,
gosh.
yeah,
Ren.
I know. It's a lot. It's a lot.
No, this is such a beautiful like story. And I know that you went through so much, but there are so many like tidbits of information that like even they may have felt small. And like these things came up for me if you don't mind me sharing it
Please, please.
with you, but just your aunt's name of Rose. So the rose, and I work with the energy of Mother Rose, and the rose as the number one, the mothering energy, that key to surrender, that I'm always held, supported, and loved, right? So, like right there, that you're a beacon of hope, and that beacon of I'm going to look to this strength, the strength of the rose,
Mhm.
right? Like that for me just stood out immensely because I work with that energy all the time. And I know on a smaller scale, obviously, than you worked with it, what it does for my life. Like imagine being held in that space for this deep strength that you just pulled from your aunt. But it's no surprise that her name is Rose.
Yeah, yes, she's been like the matriarch for our family.
Mm-hmm.
And she's since passed a few months ago, actually, but I was able to see her. She actually sent me a message, a video message, while I was in the hospital. Her daughters, my cousins, they were so great. They were like having her call me and talk to me and give me strength, you know. And she, her story and her strength, man, like I couldn't focus on anything else. And I was like, man, she is, her genes are in me. Like that's my
Mm-hmm.
father's sister, right? And she helped raise my dad. And I knew her energy and the love of my dad and their ancestors, our ancestors were there, you know, pushing me along. And I knew coming out, I was like, man, like this is this is something huge. This is something huge. It's much bigger than just the aneurysm. It's much bigger than that experience. This is the final catalyst in my life to really step into the version of myself that I was afraid to be, and afraid because of finances, and afraid because of like fear of judgment from other people. Oh man, she's crazy. She believes in this and that, you know? And I, coming out of the hospital, I didn't, it was like that version of me died. And this version of me who's in front of you today is just speaks about that, speaks her truth, shares the wisdom from the wounds, talks vulnerably about things that a lot of people don't talk about, you know, like I knew that I had put my own health on the back burner. And I was so busy caring for everyone, my patients, my clients, my mom, my partner, that I had just forgot about me. And that's where that unconditional self-love comes in. We cannot pour from an empty cup. And you hear these cliche things and they never really resonated with me, right? And now I'm like, that totally makes sense. You cannot pour from an empty cup. There's only so much we can give before we break down. And if I'm not looking for out for myself, you know, first, you know, then who's going to do it? And I can run from illness and I can run from age related things, but like it's better to stand still and look at yourself. We're just a human vessel, you know? And even though I was superwoman and I did all these things for other people, like I'm also human too. And I deserve the time off and the breaks and the love. And I just wasn't doing it for myself. And I was like, nope, I'm a superwoman. I don't need this stuff. I'm just going to keep pushing along, right? And until
Yeah.
it knocked so hard, it knocked me over, right? So
Yeah.
while I
I
was in the,
think
go ahead, go ahead.
I think it's a common theme though, and I think it's really great that you're bringing it up right now because I'm sure that everyone can resonate with not taking care of themselves the way that they should, with having something go on for too long and then realize that it turned into something bigger or that it hurts a lot more now and I should have if only and rather than telling ourselves that if only story just to listen, to yourself,
And be
right? And
present.
say
Yeah.
like, what do I need? What do I need right now? And
yourself.
everybody else can wait.
Absolutely. For yourself. Be present not only for the people you love, but first and foremost for yourself, right? And hindsight is 2020. Well, I sat in that hospital for 12 days. Again, no visitors, okay? No visitors. And I was like, why? And I think my higher self, God, source, like was like, you need this time to integrate. And you need this time to really think about what happened and to feel the gamut of emotions. So sadness, gratitude, fear, regret. I went through them all. And hindsight is 2020. And I realized like what I had done for so long. And I had shame for that. But then I was like, I can't be shaming myself. I'm human. And even though I'm a medical provider, like I'm still a human being, and I should have known better, yes, but I didn't. And this was just part of my journey and it was a painful part, but it really, it really catalyzed me into this, to the space that I'm in today. I had, I think in 2019 or 2020, I was meditating in Joshua Tree with two of my very best friends. And I got this message about opening a wellness center. And I was like, I can't do it. I can't. No, I can't leave surgery. I can't do it. I can't. But I had it downloaded in me so clearly. And I was going to call it L3 for love, love, love. Right. And love, love, love is something that my mother says and has said for generations. She's taught us, you just got to love, love, love. Right. Just got to love. I have it tattooed on my arm in her handwriting. Okay. So, like, love, love, love. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to, in Joshua Tree, I'm going to create this wellness center and it's going to be called L3 Collective. And I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. But then I come back into real life and responsibilities and fear hits me, right? And so I tabled that. But then sitting in the hospital for 12 days, I was like, it's time. It's time to create the space for everyone, right? I'm going to open a healing center and it's going to be called L3 Collective and I'm going to do it. And then it was like, okay, I made my mind, but it was like figuring out what to do. And I said, I'm going to do all the different things, I'm going to do, I'm going to have yoga and I'm going to have chiropractic and massage and breath work. And I used all of those things throughout my rehab. So I go home after 12 days and I'm 3 months. I can't really go back to doing surgery or chiropractic. So I'm kind of at home mourning the version of me who I lost, but also creating this new path, right? And
This like death and rebirth feeling,
absolutely. And
living,
I
coexisting.
coexisting. And I was like, what? And I would wake up in the middle of the night crying, mourning that old Ren. And then I would be so excited, like about the new things, but it was the shedding, right? But also loving her, not judging that version of Ren who almost died because of, lack of listening to herself, but like loving her. She did what thought she had to do and she didn't know better, but now guess what? I do. And that experience catalyzed me into this, right? So here I am. I'm like, it's going to happen. And I started to like visualize it in my head. Like, I'm going to open a space and I'm going to offer these things. And then I got well enough to finally take a trip to Mount Shasta with my very, very best friends from high school who were also on the wellness path. And we were there and I was talking to them and I had the most beautiful experience in Shasta. I mean, we were staying in a yurt in a space called Guru Shasta, which is my friend's cousin owns this. It's like a retreat space, right? Beautiful. And I just felt the energy around me. And I had this vision of Jesus walking past my yurt. And I woke up and there was a deer outside my yurt. And I was like,
What?
wow. Yeah. I was like,
You're
okay.
killing me here, right? You're
Yeah, a
killing
deer.
me.
Yes, exactly. I know. I was drumming.
The chills
I was
are gonna
drumming
kill
around
me.
around the fire. I have a beautiful drum that was gifted by a shaman, and we both have these drums, and we were playing. Carrie, the other founder of my space, we were drumming, and they were videotaping me while I was drumming, and this green energy comes and like lands on me. And Shasta is a cosmic place, okay? And I will say that I was holding Moldavite in my pocket at that time. So I was just calling it. I was calling
You're
it.
like, bring it.
Bring it, bring it. Right. So at the last day of the retreat, I sit down and I talk to my friends and I said, listen, I want to leave the wellness space I'm in. I don't feel like it aligns with my heart. It feels like it's never going to be my own. Like, what do you guys think about opening a center? And it was like immediate yeses. And I was like, what? Really? And so that was the final step for L3 Collective. It was in that space. It was after that I saw Jesus. I had the experience drumming. I mean, we were in the lake. It was the most beautiful weekend. And it ended in this decision for the three of us at that time. The L3 Collective was going to become a thing, right? A real thing. And we got home and we started looking for spaces. And we had one space we thought we got, and then it fell through. But then we found this space, and it was so easy. It was like the doors just flung open for us. And now here we are. We rented this space in November. It was a barbershop before. So this room that I'm in was black.
Okay.
So I had to do a lot of work to it. And we just hit the ground running. And now we
Amazing.
do sound baths, and we do yoga, Kundalini yoga, and we do breath work. And, I'm a chiropractor. There's another chiropractor, a really good friend of mine who's here. She does pediatric chiropractic. And now I'm doing spinal energetics in this space, and which is just taking off and is really helping. It's like helping folks like me. And I was drawn to spinal energetics. Like, I was drawn to it. There's a lot of other technique. There's like one specific technique in chiro called network spinal, right? That has been around since the 80s, 70s, or 80s that I never was really called to, but I saw spinal energetics and I saw Sarah and I was like, that's for me, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if that is the same story for you, but I saw her and I knew what she was doing because it's similar to a network, but different.
Different. Yeah.
Yeah, way different. And I was like, and I even looked at spinal flow because I was like, okay, but it didn't resonate with me. Network didn't resonate. No, when I saw spinal energetics and I saw Sarah performing, treating a group of people, I was like, that's mine. That's for me. That's going to help me help other people not get to where I was, right? To unwind the tension, to unwind, to open, right? So here we are, only a little over a year after my aneurysm ruptured, and I'm living that love. Like, I'm sharing my story, living the love, opening a space. And I thought about putting a space in LA. It's so trendy out there, wellness centers, but like LA proper. But I was like, no, I'm going to come back to the community in which I was raised. So I'm right here in Whittier and La Habra. So Whittier was where I was raised. And we don't have a lot of these types of centers, places of self-care in this area. And so I was called to bring it back to where I was raised. And so I'm here right on the border of La Habra and Whittier. And it is actually, ironically, the first place that I practice chiropractic, right across the street. So I just wanted to come back and share with my community. And I have a lot of women that are moms, that are, corporate burnouts, I have lawyers, and we have college professors, and we have people who are now coming into their own self-care. And when I tell my story, I know that it really hits home for them. You don't want to be like me. You don't want to get knocked over. You want to hear the knock and integrate some steps for yourself to help de-stress and connect back to your own heart. And so we do a lot of women's circles, and we do a lot of fun stuff that I know you're doing too, way on the other side of the country. So, it's just awesome. And like we were talking about before, I think we come across people who are on the same kind of path that you and I and Sarah and a lot of other people are just kind of opening these spaces and creating these spaces for other people to reconnect with their own hearts and to hopefully learn, not in the hard way that I learned, but in their own way, and to become, as they come through their awakening, to have the understanding that we're here on this planet for much more than just work until we die, right? We're here to connect and love and have real experiences that enrich our souls, right? And to share and be vulnerable and to be open. And I'm just so grateful to be alive, to get the second chance to do this in this lifetime.
Right. And you're living it so beautifully and so well, of just being that bright, shining light. Like when we met in class, like I was just drawn to your light, honestly. And just like, I like, I was like, I'm getting in this group because like I really wanted to like chat, like, and I was just drawn to your light, and then hearing your story and everything. It was just honestly inspirational, and motivational at the same time, right? Like really motivating you to, um, take care of yourself and to listen to yourself and to be number one, that spreader of light and love. And I think that if we can all just commit to doing that, even just a little bit more every single day, you will be surprised at how you feel, at what you see, and how your world starts to shift around you.
Definitely perception. I'm a
Yeah.
true believer in that too. I would hear the term, you can create your own reality, and I didn't get it, friend. I was like, what? What do you mean you can create your own reality? I didn't get it. And then, after all of this, it's about your perception. If you look for the crap, you're going to see the
You're going to
crap,
find it. You
and
will
you're going
find
to
it.
vibrate in that crap. But if you look
Mm-hmm.
for the small joys, then the hardest of times, you find the joy, you find the love. And it was like these goggles of like gray, dark came off me, and now I see the love in everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I went back, like, because I was like, am I going to go back to surgery or not? And I was called to go back part time because it's so different now. Like, I am doing that, and I'm probably busier than I was before, but what has changed? The perception has changed, and the gratitude and the love has changed within me. And I can be in any space and feel that gratitude and love. I don't feel trapped. I don't feel like I have to do anything. I feel like I want to do. I want to hold space for people in surgery. I want to like be able to help them on their own healing journeys. I want to have this space where we can do all this fun self-care, and it's so incredibly enriching. And I feel
Mm.
so, just my heart is like exploding, with love and
Yeah.
gratitude and happiness. And I'm finally living. And I say in my story all the time, the aneurysm didn't kill me, but it helped me to actually live, to
Mm.
live my life. And
Oh,
since
Ren.
since then, the downloads keep coming, and I'm working on a book to share the story with the downloads that are coming. And I will tell you, the first download I got, and I actually recorded it on my phone, all post surgery, all drugged out of my mind. Surrender is the greatest form of peace,
Mm. Oh, I say that the magic is in the surrender. I say that all the
right?
time.
It's the key. It's the first key. And I feel like what I was saying before, we're all coming into this ancient knowledge. It's just tapping into it, and how and listening to it, right?
Yeah,
So the
absolutely.
downloads are coming. I'm writing my story. I'm sharing it with whoever will listen at this point, and
Good.
I'm just loving everyone all the time. Like, I'm just like,
Oh,
you know,
good. Well, Ren, your story is absolutely incredible. I hope that everyone listening is accepting it for themselves, is going to start opening up that love a little bit more and start to really understand themselves and what they came here to do, which is number one, to be the love. And I think, and I hope that, I know that your story is just truly going to resonate with so many of our listeners. So thank you so much for
well,
sharing.
thank
Thank
you.
you so much. I mean, this was just mind blowing, heart opening, just, oh my God. So thank you. And
Thank you,
thank you for
friend.
being a part of this podcast. How can people follow you, follow along your story, wait for your book to come out, all the things?
Well, they can definitely follow us on Instagram, L3 Collective Wellness, L3collective.com. We have a brand new website coming up real soon. And just, reach out, and or Dr. NDC on Instagram. I'm not private. I share my life with everyone. You'll see pictures of me in the hospital there on Instagram. You'll see, my story got picked up by one of the main aneurysm foundations, called the B Foundation. So you'll see their sharing of my story. I like, again, I'm an open book, and I'm here to answer questions. And I also, just before we go, like, aneurysm is a real thing. It's 1 in 50, one every 18 minutes. We know the signs. It's mostly women our age, friend. Okay. And knowing the signs, you know, please, do some research, go onto my Instagram. I'm always posting things about it. If you have headaches that have come out of nowhere, go and say, my friend Ren had an aneurysm. And I'm very curious if this new headache I'm experiencing might be an aneurysm ready to rupture. Use my name, throw it around. Don't be
Good.
afraid to get scanned. It happens, and it's an unfortunate thing, and it kills people, and then it could be prevented. It could be prevented. So I'm here to also share that story, for the awareness of the brain aneurysm ruptures that are there and can be prevented. So listen to your body also. Listen to your body.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much
friend.
for that.
You are such a badass, being a mom, raising your beautiful boys, running that shop, doing this work. You are a badass. I
Thank
appreciate
you so
you. I'm
much.
so glad that we came into each other's reality and we were able to talk and connect the way we did. And you are always welcome in Los Angeles. And
Thank you. Oh my God. Thank you so much. I love you so much.
love you, friend.
And again, thank you. And guys, tell me all the things. Reach out to on Instagram, Spirit and Soul Studio. Let me know what you thought. I will pass your messages along to Ren, and I know that she's going to love to hear them. And let me know what resonated with you the most. Let me know what your takeaways are. I would love to hear. So thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Spirit and Soul podcast, and I'll see you next time.